when I was in elementary school, back in those days, marbles were a big thing. And I realized that the local drugstore sold the marbles in a huge plastic bag, but kids wanted to buy them in 5-cent packages. And this is, I don't know what kind of plastic bag I had at that time, but I would buy the big bag of marbles and then repackage them into small packages and sell them at school. And it was pretty good enterprise going for a while until they found out my source. And that was the end of that. Somewhere along the way, I started making potholders for my mom on a small metal frame with pieces of cloth. And so then I realized that I could sell those too. So wouldn't say my color schemes and some of those were that fantastic, but I did make a little bit of money, and as a, I don't know, whatever age, 5, 6, 7-year-old, it seemed like a lot of money at the time. So that was probably my first venture into the world of entrepreneurship and the potential it had. I worked for several companies and then came back and joined my dad in a construction firm, and was working more as a manager, learning the ropes, that sort of thing. And during that process, then we began to acquire companies, step in different directions as I was developing in the management arena, but also looking for new business opportunities. So may not be the typical entrepreneur, but tried to combine the business with it. Until the last few years, never thought about selling anything. We just kept trying to acquire and grow, and that side of it, but always looking for those opportunities. So my planned direction after I graduated from UK was to go into the automotive industry. Being interested in racing and cars my whole high school life, I was planning on going to work for Chrysler or GM or somebody like that. And that was my full intent until I interviewed those companies. And of course, coming off working on a farm and that sort of thing, rural area. And my interview at Chrysler, they showed me a room of about 600, and this is before CAD and computers, about 600 engineers working on drawing boards in one room. And I thought, this is not at all what I had in mind. So I said, you know, what about the test track or somewhere where you work with your hands on? And they said, well, everybody's got to start here. And I thought, well, this may not be what I thought it was. So when I realized the automotive field was not going to be where I wanted to start, I ended up at Shell Oil in Texas, which was an industry I knew nothing about, but I loved the fact that we ran wide open 24 hours a day. It was just a matter of getting things done, and it somewhat blended with entrepreneurial of the more important thing was to get the job done, not to get to 4 o'clock. We were building a post office, and it was a fairly sizable job to us at that time, $2 or $3 million job. We had a superintendent come in our office one afternoon, and he says, we have a major problem. He says, we have laid out the building wrong, and it's out of square. And at this time, it was probably 3/4 structure complete. So the floors were, concrete was all poured, steel was up in the air, and so what do? You know, is it out enough anybody will ever notice it? So we laid out a room, one of the smaller rooms in the building, in our shop, and looked at the floor, ceiling, the floors. Nothing would show up that it was actually. And then the real dilemma we had was, do you ever tell about it, or you just go ahead and finish the project and hope nobody ever notices it? We finally came to the conclusion we wanted to sleep at night. So we sat down with the U.S. Postal Service and their advisors and told them what we did. And just laid it out, showed our mock-up of how it would happen. And fortunately, in that situation, they said, well, you've got to take full responsibility for it, but if we can't see it at the end, you're okay. Well, then you say, boy, we really did the right thing after that happened. But it really makes you think, when there is something wrong, when do you lay it out on the table with those who are involved? I've always been heavily involved in education in my life and know the importance of that for kids. So for about 10 years, we would take the race car to middle schools, and we picked middle schools because that's where kids are most impressionable and trying to decide what they're going to do with their lives and where they're going. And so we used the race car to get their attention, showing them the parts of it, and the technology and the engineering, and also just talking about the psychology of racing and all of those aspects. But then we all learned that you got to do more than that. You can't hit kids with it once. So we put together what we call Race for Education, and we would tell the kids, we can't win a race if we don't go. You can't get an education if you don't go to school. So we would give prizes. We'd come back at the end of the year and give prizes to the kids who had not missed a day, and we did it in different forms. But ultimately, there would be a grand prize with several $100s that one kid would win for drawing their name out of a hat or ever how we did. And I today still can walk in a grocery store or see people, and they said, "I remember you. You're the guy with the race cars." Someone who's successful is like the weighted clown that we used to have when we were kids. You blow it up and you could hit it and it would just keep popping back up every time you hit it. That's what success is that person is willing to come back up one more time, no matter how much you get hit. And at the end, the most successful is the one that gets up the most. Whether you're a prize fighter or a construction business, it's just can you outlast everybody else.